Before we jump into the lists, let's keep in mind a few things. Number one, we're going to be keeping the cost down by buying high point per dollar value models. Number two, we're going to be making the list in increments so that you can play as you build up your army. You should not be buying all of this all at once. You will get overwhelmed. Number three, we're going to avoid resin models because Games Workshop resin is bad and overpriced. Number four, we're going to make the list strong enough so that you will not automatically lose your games when you go up to play. It will actually come down to your abilities. And number five, I'm not going to be listing all the good models for an army. If your favorite models aren't here, you can cut something out from my list so that you can run that instead. The Blood Angels are a Space Marine subfaction created from the gene seed of the Primarch Sanguinius. They are a very melee-focused faction that uses a combination of speed, strength, and psychic abilities to dominate their opponents. There's a very heavy angel theme, with some models and characters having literal angel wings either growing out of them or as part of their armor. Large amounts of them have gone completely insane following the death of their Primarch, turning them into even more fierce combatants known as the Death Company. They're going to follow a lot of your typical vampire expectations. They drink blood, they have a lot of flying, they have an adhesion to Italian food, etc. The upside to getting into Blood Angels is they have a lot of lore to work with. Blood Angels might have the second or third most lore in the entire 40k universe, behind only the Ultramarines and the Imperial Guard. Your individual successor chapters have more lore than a lot of other factions in the game. The army also has a very unique look to it. There's lots of wings, jetpacks, and red is a color that has a lot of pop to it, which is going to really stand out on the battlefield. All those wings and jetpacks on your infantry also means that your army gets around the board very quickly. A lot of your units are going to be moving 8+ inches every single turn. All of that speed combines very nicely with melee that will shred just about anything that you put in front of it. They also have access to 4 different Blood Angels detachments and the 8 Space Marine detachments, meaning that you're going to have all the variety you could possibly ask for. There's also a lot of older models that just got updated from resin to plastic and look a lot better and are actually going to be worth your money now. The combat patrol for Blood Angels is also great, and grabbing 2 of them is a fantastic start to the army because of how much value you're going to be able to get out of it. The Blood Angels detachments also widely share a lot of the same units. Even if you run the Death Company detachment, you can usually get away with running the exact same units and just calling them Death Company instead. This means that your dollar is going to go a lot further when it comes to buying Blood Angels. Now, there are always some downsides to collecting an army, and for Blood Angels, that's going to be that one of the absolute best units that you can run with them are wildly overpriced. Jump Assault Intercessors are really hard to recommend buying if you're just starting your army, unless you're willing to drop a couple of extra $100. They are very good, and they especially feel good inside of the Blood Angels, but they're just a little too pricey. Melee armies also do still rely on having some good shooting in their lists to keep their opponents honest in their board positioning. The Blood Angels don't have a ton of ways to really enhance their fire support, so a lot of the times you're just going to have to rely on the datasheets for your shooting platforms to be good enough on their own. Also, despite being a melee army, they can be pretty susceptible to getting countercharged. They will hit very hard if you get the first swing, but they can also buckle pretty quickly to incoming attacks because of their basic marine profiles. And finally, the new Sanguinary Guard look really dumb compared to the old ones. The new tiny wings attached to jetpacks look way less interesting than the actual just giant wings that they had before. The army rule for all of the Space Marine detachments is going to be Oath of the Moment. You pick a thing on your opponent's side of the field and you say that that is your oath target. Now your whole army will reroll all of their hits on it, and that thing is probably just going to die. Because you are running Blood Angel specific units, you will not be getting the extra +1 to wound that was recently added to them, but there are some variations of Blood Angels that do cut out all of their Blood Angel specific units to be able to get that +1 to wound. We're not going to do that here. We're only going to be looking at 1 detachment today for Blood Angels because they all kind of do the same general type of thing. So we're going to be looking at the Liberator Assault Group because I think it's pretty easy to understand. If you charge, you get +1 attack, and all of those attacks get +2 strength. It's pretty simple, but it actually moves the needle on a lot of math for what you're going to be able to kill. being able to suddenly have a ton of extra attacks in a unit and being able to potentially make those attacks +2 to wound, depending on the breakpoints, is just a lot of extra wounds that you're going to be pushing through to your opponent. Almost regardless of which Blood Angels detachment you want to actually run, I'm going to recommend the same path for your absolute beginner starter set. It's going to result in you picking up 1 combat patrol of Blood Angels for the 500 point list, and then as you move into the 1000 point list, you're going to be picking up a 2nd combat patrol of Blood Angels. It's going to give you a lot of Sanguinary Guard to work with and all of the Assault Intercessors you could possibly ever want, but you're not going to have a ton of variety in the units early on. From there, moving on to 1500 points, I am recommending the Sanguinor and Commander Dante for having just very good profiles to go with what you have, and also just being great support to help you enable what you want to do anyways. We're going to be picking up a box for the Razorback to turn into a Rhino to move some of our Assault Intercessors around the board, and then we're also going to be picking up a box of Scout Squads, because I think that every Marine list is better with Scouts. And as we move on to our 2000 point list, we're going to be buying 2 units of the Captain with Jump Pack to be able to lead some of the Sanguinary Guard so that they can have their passives enabled so that they are harder to kill. And we're also going to need to add some shooting platforms. You can add any 2 shooting platforms that you want as long as they fit into your list here. It doesn't really matter that much, but I would recommend that you pick 2 that can kill other vehicles. In this case, I've chosen to pick up 1 Vindicator and 1 Gladiator. Now, for the purposes of list building, I am going to be listing all of these as the Liberator Assault Group, but you could just as easily run this as Gladiator's Task Force, Angelic Inheritors, Angelic Host, or possibly even Stormlance and still have plenty of success. For the characters, you're going to be having the Blood Angels Captain, who is going to be able to lead the units of Assault Intercessors, who we're going to be breaking up into 2 5-mans. This is going to let 1 5-man hold our home objective, and the other 5-man move up the board. The Sanguinary Guards can be split up into 2 3-mans with X-Carmine Blades and Inferno Pistols, so that they can move around the board to different areas to go and pick off whatever we need. They're not going to have any leaders yet, but we're going to fix that soon. At 1000 points, it's going to look very similar, except there is going to be one big notable difference. We're going to be running one of the Blood Angels captains with a master-crafted chainsword, and this is going to be for a little bit later, but the chainsword is going to wind up being the best option for this specific captain. As far as the other changes, we're going to be running 1 6-man unit of Sanguinary Guard because we can't run 4 3-man units. At 1500 points, now that we have a little bit more to work with, we're going to be having Commander Dante leading the 6-man Sanguinary squad. The Sanguinor is going to just be hanging out doing his own solo operative thing. And we're going to be having the Scout squads with shotguns so they can advance and shoot. And we're going to be running 1 Rhino that's going to be able to run 2 5-mans of Assault Intercessors. This is where the big thing comes in, though. Because of the Liberator Assault Group, we're going to be able to give the Blood Angels Captain with the Master-Crafted Chainsword the Rage-Fueled Warrior enhancement. And this is going to absolutely chug damage. If my math is correct, then on the go turn that you use this with Oath of the Moment on a target, if it's on an objective, you are going to do 34 mortal wounds to your opponent. This is just not something that anything in the game can take. It has a 90% chance to one-tap a Norn Emissary through its 5-up Feel No Pain if it is on an objective. It doesn't matter if you're fighting into Terminators, it doesn't matter if you're fighting into Custodes, it doesn't matter if you're charging a tank. It will probably die from this activation alone. Finally, as we round it out at 2,000 points, you're going to be having the 2 jump pack captains leading the 2 3-mans of Sanguinary Guard, and you're going to be able to have your Gladiator Lancer with all of its good anti-tank firepower, and your Vindicator with all of its basic stuff able to help support you. Again, you can make these whatever, make them Ball Predators, make them both Vindicators, make them both Gladiator Lancers, make one a Ballista Shred. Doesn't really matter. The big thing is just that you need to have some kind of firepower support. And that's going to cover everything for the Blood Angels. Overall, I think that if I were to recommend any single Space Marine faction to a new player, it would be the Blood Angels. I think that they have a very straightforward game plan, but I also think that there is a lot of room to grow and become a better player because of how important things like staging becomes as you get better and better and better at the game. There's also just a lot of pretty intuitive list building that comes with them of if it's got a jump pack and it melees, you're probably going to put it in your list. Big shout out to all of my channel supporters who help make these videos possible, such as Alexander Thomas, and everyone else who's been generous enough to support me. If you would like to try and help out the channel, please consider the links in the description where you can either check out the Amazon affiliate link or go support me on Ko-fi. Thank you all for watching.